Three, two, one. Hello, everyone. I am your host, Ben Jaye, and we are back for another exciting episode of the Creators Lounge podcast, Group Chat, episode 7. And so kind of following in line with last week's episode where we talked about Clubhouse, this week we are back again with some business owners and creative individuals who have very, very cool projects. And you're already going to be familiar with Ethan because he's come on many of these episodes before, but we also have a new guest right down here. So let's go through, guys, give some introductions. Just to give a preface for the episode, everyone watching, we're basically talking about running your own business, running your own project, and the mechanics behind that. How do you run your own business? What does that mean? What are some of the core values you need to have and the strategic tips you can be implementing? So we're talking about running your own business today. Let's go ahead and go with Ethan first. Heidi, you can go second. Ethan, what is your name? Where are you from? What do you do, most importantly?
Hi guys, my name is Ethan. I am a life coach. I was based out of Korea for like 5 years, but now I'm back in America, running farm growth operation. I'm an entrepreneur of about 10 years now, pretty close, and I'm here today to learn from this lady.
You're pointing at me right now on my screen, so I think this is a lady down here. Both of us.
Okay.
The ladies are going to be
my screen,
dropping the knowledge.
I'm like in the middle of Benji's head. So.
Yeah.
Bad place to be.
She just lives
All right,
up here
Heidi, who are you?
24/7. Heidi, give us the intro for yourself. What is your name? Where are you from? And what do you do?
Hi guys, I'm Heidi. So where am I from? Gosh, that's hard. I'm gonna go with California. Born and slightly raised in LA, moved to Africa as a kid. It's a whole long story. Maybe another podcast for another time of places we've traveled. But right now I live in Oklahoma with my husband, close to his family, which is awesome. And what do? Okay, so I started my own virtual assistant business last year. And I'm kind of in the process of, like finding my niche and expanding and growing and rebranding to an online business manager right now. So that's in the process. But I, like EJ said, he's been an entrepreneur for 10 years. This has been my first year of really entrepreneurship, which has been really exciting, and I've loved it. And I'm so excited to be on this podcast with you guys because I want to learn from you guys. So
that's really what this is, to be honest. Like,
Yep.
we just have three creative brains here that know a little bit of different subjects. We want to combine it all together for our own value, but then also obviously for you guys as the viewers. What can you guys learn from it? What can you take from it? What can you utilize? And so in that vein, just a real quick note to Ethan and Heidi, open conversation. If you guys want to push someone on a certain point, feel free to jump in and still the conversation. So I want to give the audience a context in terms of what the purpose is with these projects that we're running, these businesses that we're operating. What's the intention or the purpose behind it? Ethan, I've asked you this before. I know that for this kind of stage of your life, you're also trying to question it and figure out exactly what your purpose is. But, to be fair, like you said, 10 years being an entrepreneur, you've done life coaching for a substantial amount of that time. So, going into your own coaching business and really putting your effort and intelligence into the project, what's on your mind at this point in time of the purpose of the life coaching, the intention with the life coaching? What's really the mission behind all of that?
I think it's pretty interesting because my approach to business has always been a little bit different. Or maybe that's just my own perception, I don't know. But I do feel like a lot of business starts with kind of discovering a need and then finding the most efficient way to fulfill that need, and then kind of just expounding on that. But what's missing in the classic business approach would be, or the approach to building business would be, the point at which your business makes the need of your business obsolete. And that's something that I have actively sought out. I've actively sought out with my businesses. For coaching specifically, I'm coaching so that I don't have to coach anymore. I'm teaching people for the purpose of not having to teach them someday. Because I understand intuitively that if I'm able to create enough doers, then there will be enough people like me who are willing to go out there and do this and touch people and talk to people. Stop laughing. And and I don't need to do that anymore, and therefore I can move on and I can do different things with my life. So that's kind of what my purpose is right now. And I think that is true for a lot of things that I'm doing. I mean, I don't want to go into too many details, but yeah, I would say that that's kind of what I've found my purpose to be, is to find a need and then fulfill that need to the extent that that need is eliminated, and then evaporate assets and move on. So.
That's fascinating.
Right? The idea is like intriguing because most people want to have a business that's sustainable.
Yeah.
They want it to be able to grow and continue to get bigger and better. But for you, EJ, you're looking at it as like a finite resource that you can exhaust completely. But then it's rebirthed by someone else, it's carried on by someone else. Sort of like Johnny Appleseed, I think his name is, the man who planted all the apple seeds across America.
Yeah.
I want to hear about where that stems from, but Heidi, let's go down to you, Heidi. You know, what's the intention with your business, the project that you're running? What's the purpose and intention behind it?
Well, I feel like that is growing and changing, because when I first started this a year ago, I had just left my job due to the pandemic, and I was really looking for like a quick way that I could work for myself. And because I needed to do that, like after working for many corporations, I was like, I just need to run my own thing, be my own boss. I need to make the decisions for myself. And so run my own business, but to find something that's profitable and uses my skills. And I kind of like was on TikTok one day, and someone was talking about virtual assistants and how they created their business in the pandemic and it's grown rapidly. And I was like, you know what? I can do this. So I just did it. So I think the purpose at the time was just that, finding something that I didn't hate, that I was my own boss and I could do and use the skills I already had. And now I feel like my purpose is changing into something that I can really help other people with, and using my exact set of skills. Because virtual assistant is it's a really large category. You could do that for anyone, or you could be a virtual assistant for anything, really. And I feel like I work best in like a team environment where I'm kind of a part of the team of my clients, and really work one-on-one with them and their other teams. And it's more collaborative rather than like someone just telling me, okay, do all this work. You know, I like to work with people and collab on stuff like that. So I'm really trying to figure that out. But the main purpose I would be to help others with the skills that I have. That is something that they need, organizational or other things that I've learned along the way. So yeah, it's kind of in the midst of growing and changing, but helping people has always been like the key on my list.
Heidi, real quick for the audience who's watching and might not know, how would you define or explain what a virtual assistant does?
Oh yeah, so a virtual assistant is basically an assistant that you can hire that works virtually. So they don't live in your same town or city or state, country. They don't necessarily, you aren't an employee of that company, but you're contracted out to do either a certain task or provide certain skills. So you can be a virtual assistant for like marketing, for admin stuff, really anything business related that someone would need help with. That's why it's a big, vast, huge world. And really either figuring out, as a virtual assistant, if you want to figure out your niche, what you like to do, the skills you like to do, or the tasks you like to do, or the people you want to work with.
Yep.
Like I know virtual assistants that only work with wedding photographers or something. So basically a virtual assistant is someone who's virtual, who works for themselves generally, and then you hire to handle tasks as a business owner that you don't want to handle.
I love it, Heidi, because it's like being a jack of all trades, right? And then it even has the ability to get more focused into being a master of one. In the case of like obviously the wedding photographer friend of yours who only works with people who do wedding photography, they found their niche. And I think it's been a conversation that I've had a lot recently with a lot of creatives, is that as creative individuals, it's very hard for us to be tied down to one specific thing because we have so many ideas. I know that's true for myself. I know it's true for Ethan. I did an interview with a really cool dubstep reactor and reviewer who also talked about feeling a little bit cramped in terms of what kind of videos he could make on YouTube, because obviously this one's doing well. This type of video is doing well. This one's doing a little bit less well, but, you know, he likes this one more. So yeah, you know, figuring out what to focus on and what to spend your time towards is difficult. So having an assistant position is great because it's a jack of all trades, but you can also get more specific if you want to as well. Ethan, where are you at with that process of having so many interests and things you want to try out and do versus being really focused on one? Where are you at with that process of figuring it out for yourself?
Probably a little farther along than you would have found me 3 to 4 years ago. I would say definitely farther along than you would have found me 7 to 8 years ago. It's actually funny because I was having a conversation with someone I'm pretty close with a few days ago, and they were they're just a friend, but they like to kind of do like the whole coach to the coach thing, where like they don't really know about coaching, but you know, they like to ask me inquisitive questions that they think are helpful. And I think for me, just having someone there that does that is very beneficial for me. And so, like, they asked me, they were like, well, you know, coaching is your thing. So, you know, what are you seeing, like 10, 15 years here? And I was like, I'm a millennial. I can't stay with anything longer than a year and a half, 2 years max.
Oh gosh, that's so true.
Yeah. So they were like, oh. They kind of just like deflated their whole like thing that they wanted to say to me, and I was like, I'm sorry, you know, you can still share what you want to share. But yeah, no, I think I've kind of accepted the fact that like it's okay that nothing I do is going to last very long, because I don't want it to last very long. And I think that a lot of the time that I've spent up until now was just kind of not admitting that to myself, in terms of like feeling this inside, like this need inside of me to make this thing long term, or to make it last a substantial period of time, and then feeling bad whenever I just wasn't into it anymore.
Well, it's because sorry, that's like what we're taught, right? Like we're taught at a young age, at least I feel like I was, that like you go to college, you get a career job, and you stick with that career for the next 20 years so you can retire with good benefits, right? So I feel like maybe that need is ingrained in us to stay with something a long time, even if it's not something we really want to do.
Right, exactly. I think especially so in business, where it's like Benji said, like most businesses, I would push to say like all businesses are taught that like you find a need and you capitalize on that, and you just, you know, you monetize that need and you just make it sustainable, so you can just recycle through that. And the concept changes and maybe your execution changes, but the whole concept of having the need and kind of monetizing that need and pulling money from it doesn't really change. And I think that the whole purpose of monetizing your content as well is like make it long term. If you're not going to be doing this content for less than 3 to 4 years, don't bother monetizing it, because that's just a stab in the back to your followers, or that's just rude to the people who are supporting you. And I think that all is kind of the narrative that drives us to stay with things that we don't care about anymore, or things that don't kind of inspire us. And so for myself, just kind of accepting that like that it's okay to not do that. It's okay to just do things until you're done with them, and then find an exit strategy. I think at this point it's allowed me to actually look for that exit strategy in advance and kind of be okay, I can do this for the next 2 to 3 years, and then my exit strategy exists and I can get out of that. So kind of same exact lifestyle, but less stress and anxiety leading up to that exit.
I find it really funny that you're mentioning this, Jaye, because I knowing you as a person, obviously you're a highly committed individual, and whenever you do something, like you do 110% on that thing, and you just see it through completely to the end. So it's interesting to hear you at this point now talking about taking a step away from that and going to a different route where you're, you know, doing stuff short term, enjoying it for the moment and everything. Has that been like an internal thing for yourself, or is it only in terms of businesses?
I actually think it's funny that you said that. I would push back on that. I mean, like, I feel like accumulatively throughout my entire creative career, I mean, like, all I've done is short-term stuff. This and that. Do it here, lose interest, burn out, because I don't stop myself in time after losing interest, and I continue to push myself to do it. Burnout, get depression, find something new that makes me happy, start the whole process over again. I mean, I've had like at least 7 or 8 different Instagram accounts that can attest for that. different ways that I've tried to brand myself, or different skills that I tried to market, or whatever it may be. So I feel like this is something that I've dealt with. I don't want to say dealt with. I think this is just a way that I've lived for a long time now, for as long as I can remember, both in skill sets and in like kind of outreach.
Oh, interesting.
So personally, I don't know. I mean, like,
well, I
if
think
beliefs
to
don't
jump in, I
change,
think
then-
for you though, I
yeah.
guess what I would say then, hearing that is that you've always done it with the intensity level of commitment. So your level of energy and action you gave to it was committed, dedicated action. Even if your heart wasn't into it, your efforts were definitely there. How about for you, Heidi?
I think
Go ahead, Jay, jump in.
more so, just like as a final note there, to kind of like give some clarity to the audience listening, because we're kind of in the weeds here. I think it's, to clarify, it's really just like, to use goal language, that's really all it is yes, I'm dedicated, yes, I give 110%, I see it through till the end. It's just that before that end was never defined. So the end for me just existed whenever I lost interest. And so what would happen was I would reach this end that was always there, and I knew it was, I just didn't want to admit it. And so I would lose interest because the end had come. So I lost interest. But then after this point, I couldn't give 110% anymore. So from that point on, it was frustrating. And that's whenever it led to like burnout and stuff like this. So for now, for like what I'm doing now, my process is identify the end before I start. Identify where it looks like I'm willing to take this, where it looks like I'm going to lose interest, and then kind of set that as like my goal point. And then when I get there, reevaluate. Am I still honestly interested? Am I still honestly inspired by this? Okay, let's take it a step further. If not, my exit strategy, let's get out of here. So I think it's really just more about carefully defining exactly what goals I want to kind of like expand on, and then kind of
I'd call it a
get,
pivot point. I think that's what I call it, a pivot point, right? Because you could get there and then, like you said, reevaluate. Maybe you're still going to be interested in it, or maybe you're not going to be interested anymore. So it's a pivot point, right? And I think that's great for the audience listening. For a lot of us, we struggle with commitment, myself included. And so, like Ethan said, if there's something you want to do or something you want to try, and if it's too overwhelming to think about that long term, give yourself a deadline. Maybe it's 1 month, maybe it's 6 months, maybe it's 1 year. Give yourself some sort of deadline where it's like your exit point. You can quit after that point, and then see how you feel at that point. So say I'm going to pick up yo-yoing for 6 months, and at the end of 6 months, I'm going to make a decision. Or I'm going to pick up, drawing for 1 year and then make a decision. Like, yeah, it's a good point, Jay. Having an exit point for yourself can give you that kind of peace of mind of like, I don't have to be tied into this. I can just take it step by step and figure it out. Heidi, I want to ask you about commitment as well. Obviously, running your own business and giving all your time and energy to do it, to make income, to support yourself. What has been your relationship with commitment over the years, and now even more so in terms of your business?
Actually, this is really interesting because what EJ was talking about just kind of happened to me with a separate business that I started with a friend of mine back in January. We were doing a membership community for like makers, so people, arts and crafts, and like product business owners that like physically make their products and sell them at craft fairs and whatnot. So we created this business, and we told ourselves 6 months, in January. So that'd be 6 months is the end of July. And we told ourselves, let's get through 6 months. We committed to that. And we kind of were pushing full steam ahead. And it was getting to the point that we were going to hire someone to build a website for us. And, I was on this plan and really like gung ho about it because that's my personality. Like, I set a plan for myself. I love planning and organizing. And so like, I was like, let's go, and then once it kind of came to the point that we were going to have to really commit some serious money into this and really make it something, my business partner, she was like, I don't know, let's pause and think about it, which I'm happy she did, because it made me realize that I didn't want to do this anymore. Like, I was just on the
high of like succeeding and achieving and doing.
Yes. And I love building websites, and I love planning stuff and like all of that. So I was like really excited about it. And I liked the plans, and I wanted to help these makers that needed guidance in their businesses. But we stopped to reevaluate, and we decided that this wasn't what we wanted to do right away, or this exact model of helping maker businesses.
Mm.
And so, yesterday we had a meeting and told our members that, like the membership is effectively closing for now. And it was rough. It's not easy to do that, but I learned so much through the whole entire process, and they've learned, and my business partner learned, and it's not necessarily over, but it's pivoting. And we're taking a break, and it was the right decision. And I'm glad that we allowed ourselves a way out, and that 6 months in, we remembered that we allowed ourselves a way out and then took it.
That's amazing, Heidi. That's amazing. I do have a few kind of
Crazy.
follow-up questions because I feel like a lot of people might come to that place. Like Ethan, like you said before, you would do something, and once you hit that ending point, even though it was done for you emotionally, physically you still have those same habits and actions you were taking.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe you can both weigh in on this. What kind of questions do you go through? Like, what's your checklist for knowing that you're completely done with something? How do you have that hard conversation with yourself of like, hey, maybe I'm not that into it anymore? Like, what kind of goes through your mind at those points? What kind of questions should people be asking themselves? I'm not sure who wants to go first. Ethan, Heidi? Heidi, go ahead.
Yeah, I can go ahead. Part of it was my husband being like, Heidi, like, you don't really seem like asking me the right questions of like, has something changed? Because he notices my emotional behavior quicker than I notice my own. That's just because he's always a little bit more emotionally intelligent than I am, I think, and like how to handle or recognize your own emotions. I feel a negative emotion and I'm like, no, it doesn't exist. Shut down. Like, this isn't real. I'm just happy. Like, that's how that's just my personality, right? So he started pointing some stuff out to me, and I was like, no, you're wrong. I'm really into this. I want to do this. But the things that I'm starting to notice for myself is that if I don't want to do something, like if I just don't want to create the content for the group, or I didn't want to write the email, and not because it wasn't valuable or that I wanted to still help these people. I just wasn't into everything that I was doing. And I think that's a big sign for me that if I'm procrastinating, it generally means it's something I don't want to do. I don't know. So I don't know if it's more of questions that I ask myself. It's more of like paying attention to my actions, because if I'm really into doing something, I'll make time for it. I'll do it. Like, if it's something that I'm excited about, I'll do it. So
I completely understand. I completely agree. You're right, Heidi. Like, the procrastination thing is a big sign for us to be taking note of, right? If there's something that we're procrastinating on, we should really question, like, because a lot of us just go in the self-blame route of like, oh shit, I'm lazy, right? Or oh shit, like I'm not good enough, and start the self-blame part. But like you said, it actually can be a sign of what we should be doing instead. If I'm losing interest, maybe I need to do something different, right? The hard thing, I think, for some people would be deciding between, whether it's, I'm not sure if you can jump in if you want to, Heidi, like, how to differentiate between, is it short-term procrastination or is it long-term dissatisfaction? I don't know, do you have any insights on that, Heidi, in terms of how to differentiate between them? I think obviously that you mentioned, having Steven there. So, for the audience, you could ask some of your family and friends around you to do a self-check, like how do they perceive the situation? Yeah. But what about internally, Heidi? How would you differentiate between short-term versus long-term dissatisfaction?
Ooh, that's hard. I want to say, like, besides just like not procrastinating or like, just not wanting to do something, how is it affecting you emotionally? Like, because I feel like if something is turning into not a great work environment for me, or not something I should be spending time on, long term, I start getting depressed, and it affects my mental health. And speaking to EJ's point earlier about like reaching a point and then you were done with something but you keep going, like that's been a lot of my past work experiences, not all of them, but generally I've reached a point where I wasn't motivated or whatever it was in my work, in my jobs. And so then I just kind of kept going through the routines even though I was ready to be done with it. And then I would get depressed or tired and just like sleep all day. Any day that I had off, I'd just be sleeping or watching TV because I mentally can't handle anything else. So I think that's a telltale for me, is how I'm emotionally handling something, or how is it affecting me mentally.
Oh, I love that, Heidi. I really love that. I think that it's something that all of the audience listening should take to note, is that our emotions, our mental health states, you're not just depressed for the sake of being depressed. You're usually depressed because there's a reason that you're depressed. You're usually procrastinating. There's a reason you're procrastinating. You're anxious. There's a reason you're anxious. And this can be the really, really, really important questions to be asking yourself. Why am I so depressed consistently? Why am I so anxious consistently? And then questioning that can be the reverse engineering of like, oh, wait a minute, I'm dissatisfied in my relationship. I'm dissatisfied with my job. I'm dissatisfied with my hobbies, right? And so it's not always going to be the extreme where you just have to quit the job and leave or break up with the person. Like sometimes there's just some, problem management that can take place. But questioning the connection between your mental health and your life, you can really see some correlations there to figure stuff out better. EJ, did you want to jump in on the conversation as well, EJ? It's some questions you ask yourself when you're hitting this kind of the doldrums of I'm not really satisfied with this anymore.
I mean, yeah, I took some notes here that I could share. I don't know how relevant they are. I just want to add that, like, I have seen the benefit of looking at the emotional side of things, but at the same time, feel like as like a leader of a business, like as leaders of business, you have to kind of see both sides of the equation. If you're too busy looking only at the emotions, not a lot's going to get done at your organization, especially if you're a one-man team or a two-person team or a three-person team. So you kind of do have to balance both of it. And I know that it's not safe advice to give anyone, but you do sometimes have to just be a dick to yourself in terms of like, I know you're dealing with stuff, and I know that you're a soft puppy, but you need to get up and get this done. And kind of the criteria that I use would be like, I ask myself, like, am I still in love with this vision? Still in love with this vision of where I'm going and what I'm doing? If not, what changed? Because there's always the off chance. There's always the possibility that you don't love that anymore and you've moved on. That's fine. But there's also the off chance that you're just telling yourself that as an excuse to validate your current behavior. So if I still love my long-term vision and I can't hide that, I can't lie to myself about that, then I need to look at this task that's causing me to procrastinate, or this task that's driving me down. What's a better way to achieve it? What's a better way to execute on it? And I guess also kind of bigger than that would be like, is it even relevant to my vision? If it's not relevant, then that's fine. Cut it. If it's not something you're good at, if it's not something you enjoy doing, and it's not vital to your mission, cut it. Deal with the side effects of that. If it is vital, find a smarter way to execute on it. Whether that's getting someone else to do it, whether that's finding a completely different answer to the solution, or whether that's finding motivation partner to help you, someone who like can stay on you about that. A lot of times those are cheaper than actually paying someone to do the task. But yeah, like if you still love your vision, it's going to take hard work to get there, and humans naturally don't like hard work. And so sometimes you are going to feel like you don't want to do this thing. But if every time we don't want to do something, we just say, oh, I'm just having one of those days where I don't want to do anything and I just want to sit around and watch Netflix. And it's like, hey, that's okay, buddy. You've worked hard. It's like, well, yeah, you have worked hard, but have you worked hard enough to get to where you want to be? Because if you haven't, you really need to reevaluate if you really want to be there. Because being there means that you're going to have to strip away all of that weak butt mentality and replace it with a stronger, harder person. And if that's not the kind of life you vibe with, that's fine. But you need to reevaluate your expectations for yourself in the long run, because lower standards is going to create a lower quality result. Or I guess I would just say a different quality result. So yeah, I do think it's powerful.
That's really important.
Agree.
It's really important, EJ, and I completely agree. And that's also why, because this kind of goes back to what we talked about initially about commitment, right? And so, and also the exit strategies as well, because if you have trouble committing to something and going all in, balls to walls, like I'm not going to give up. I don't care about what my emotions are saying. I'm going to see this through. If you're struggling with that, then yeah, you should give yourself 1 month, 6 month, 1 year deadline to have that pivot point. Because it does take a lot of questioning. There's a lot of soul searching and hard work that goes into it. I have a quote here from a man named Tim Glover. He was a trainer with Kobe Bryant, and I'm sure he's done other cool stuff as well, but I saw him on a TV show, YouTube show, Impact Theory. He said, your mind will make a decision. Your feelings always make suggestions. And on the broader context of what he was talking about was just that, if you listen to your emotions, then you're not always going to be happy with where you end up at. If you listen to your mind, then you can always make better choices and have higher standards for yourself. And so, it's great conversation. Obviously for all of us, we're not really at that point just now of like questioning if we should give it up or not give it up. All of us are in the throes of the effort of like making content, communicating with people, building clientele and everything. So talking about this, since we all have the commitment to what we're doing right now, coaching business, virtual assistant, let's talk about building audience around that kind of mission, that kind of ideal, and that kind of business structure. Heidi, if you want to go first, what's been your process for building audience for your mission?
Yeah, so I feel like I mostly focus on Instagram as like a place to be building community and not necessarily like finding clients. Like I feel like that is important, but I am really wanting to focus on just building like a community of people. And so I focused a lot on content that is valuable to me, or like thoughts and patterns that I think are important to me, and kind of built that as like the content pillars that I'm going to talk about. Whether that's, sharing a little bit about my lifestyle, or my life, and like my cat, because I love my cat, but like sharing things that are like about my life, because that's interesting, or, hopefully interesting to people. But more than that, it's like I don't have a grand
It's authentic and relatable. So, I mean, it works.
Yes. But more than that, of just trying to add value. And also what's really important to me, because it's something that I think I've had to learn, is to take time to rest and pause and rejuvenate yourself and not just go, because I can really get on that hamster wheel and run, and then I tire myself out and then I'm exhausted. So making time for yourself, whether that's for your mental, your physical, your emotional, whatever, or just, take a break. Like, that's been a really important thing to me that I don't think a lot of people talk about in terms of running your own business, or because I feel like we're just always going. And I'm like, well, you have to pause sometimes just to feel better.
Yes.
So I don't know. I guess my strategy was find the things that I think are important to me, because of that authenticity. I want to be myself online, and then find the things that I think other people need to hear that maybe people aren't talking about, that is still authentic to yourself, and go from there. Like I'm still building, I'm still learning and growing, but those, I guess, have currently been the things that I've been focusing on and what I talk about in my community.
Love it. I want to touch on a point about where we think where we could be doing better at. But before we do that, Ethan, let's jump over to you, because you've been doing a lot more content in the last year or 2 years, especially on platforms besides Instagram. So what's been your approach to content creation for you, Ethan?
I have a very unique approach. Just hit your head on a wall for a long time, see absolutely no growth, then change platforms and just blow up overnight. Basically. I mean, like, it's no secret that, like, me as a person, I've had very, very menial social media kind of audience for the last knows how long. And then, like, that's mostly, like, we're talking Facebook, we're talking Instagram, we're talking Twitter when I was younger. My early businesses, we're talking sites like Tumblr. I did some Chinese social media website. I don't remember what that was, but, like, I did all of this stuff, and, like, I had very little response to a lot of what I was doing. And then when I was in Korea, I tried out TikTok, and I really was attracted to the platform. I had a couple videos that, like, blew up on there, and it wasn't really enough to cause any kind of popularity. It was enough to show me that, like, oh, what I've done up until now hasn't worked. And I know that's, like, I know it's a controversial topic. I mean, like, a lot of social coaches will be like, never tell yourself that what you're doing, you're not worrying. Every effort is valid. I even tell people that. I'm always like, stop judging yourself. Change your expectations. But to be honest, it's just true. Like, just wasn't working. If something doesn't work, it doesn't work, and you just have to be honest with yourself about that. There's no kind of like there's no space for soft icing or soft clouds around truth. Like, you're just not getting the truth, you're just getting the softness of what you're trying to say. Like, I think maybe you've had less response on social media as compared to your peers. It's like, oh, okay, well, less response is okay. But when the reality is no response, or like close to no response, and actually no response in terms of see-through to client leads, I think that's a problem. And think that we need to be honest with ourselves about stuff that's not working, and we need to be honest with other people about what's not working. And so for myself, that kind of bout with TikTok really showed me that what I'd done on all of these other platforms hadn't worked for me all of these years, which either meant that there was a problem with what I was doing, or there was a problem with the platform that I was on. And I think that there was a lot wrong with what I was doing. It's part of the learning process. But I think there's also, it's just, we are intuitively better at working on some platforms than others. And I really experienced that a lot with Clubhouse. Whenever I got on Clubhouse and I was really able to connect with people and communicate a lot more efficiently and effectively. And, I saw my followers grow, 200, 300, 400% overnight. And I think that was really the first time that I've seen meaningful response from any kind of social media. And it really did show me that, like, okay, when something's working, this is what it looks like.
Mm-hmm.
It's not 3 followers coming in a month. It's not 10 followers coming in a year. Like, those are just bots, or those are just your friends finally coming to that platform saying, oh, Ethan's on here, let me give him a follow, So yeah, I do think that experimenting with platforms is really important. And that's kind of something that I've been pushing a lot, because it's something that I've just come to realize in the last 6 months. So
I really like that you said that, if something's not working, it could be you and your content or what you're saying, or it could be the platform. Because I think most of us would immediately be like, oh my gosh, I'm doing something wrong. Like, we blame ourselves initially. So I think it's a good point to be like, we'll just try out what you're doing on different platforms and see if something else clicks. And then you can kind of rule out which one is it.
Yeah, I think I've seen both people. I've seen both sides of it, Heidi. I've seen the people who immediately assume that the platform is screwed because their content is so perfect that there could never be anything wrong with it. And they show it to me, and it's like this.
The algorithms are against you. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Like,
there's always the people complaining like, the algorithm's against me. I'm not relevant anymore. And
oh yeah, for sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Then feel free to go find another platform to spread your hate on.
I guess that's just me. I always blame myself. If something's wrong, I'm like, oh my gosh, it's my fault.
Yeah, exactly. There's always the other guy. That's why it's important to spread, I think, both sides of the equation.
Yeah, it's important to be open-minded, right? Like you said, AJ, like due to some platforms that are very relevant, like Facebook and Instagram, like organic growth is just slow on those platforms because they're so established. They've been around for a long time. They're flooded, so you're not going to see massive growth on them. A platform like TikTok and Clubhouse, they're still very young. And so there's a lot of organic growth on there because there's people going into the platforms and figuring out stuff. So, part of it is on the side of platforms, organic growth versus, non-organic growth. And part of it's on the individual, how can you improve your content, your strategies? Heidi, I would love to jump down to you. What is something you feel like that you've been doing wrong on social media, or something that just like a strategy that hasn't worked well for you, or some kind of hard realization you had to come to terms with? I'm not sure if there's something comes to mind, or maybe nothing, but what do you think of when you hear that?
I don't know if there's something that I've been doing wrong, except the fact that I know I haven't been engaging enough.
Mm-hmm.
And I fault the fact that it's not my forte. I mean, I love talking to people, so that isn't it. I don't know what it is, and maybe I'm on the wrong platform. Maybe it's not. Maybe engaging with people through text and messages and responding to messages or comments, it's just not my favorite thing. I don't know why, because I love people and I like connecting with people. So I don't know what that is. So maybe it's just a platform issue. So it's one of those things that we're doing pretty well at it, carving out 5 to 10 minutes a day, doing that for myself on my own platforms. And I have been slack on it. So I know, I could definitely see I was getting the growth, and people, and it's not all about growth. It's supposed to be about the interactions you have with people. And so maybe that's just me needing to find a different platform or a different way of utilizing Instagram that I enjoy connecting with people on. But whenever I do have conversations with people on there, it's a lot of fun, and I've met some really cool people on Instagram. So I don't want to like put that out there and then people are like, oh my gosh, he doesn't like us.
Don't worry, Heidi, I've been very open about the fact that I really, really struggle with getting back to DMs, and people know that's true just from experience. It's hard, and like you said, like I love people so much and I really care about the interactions, but it's hard for me to sit down and get back to 10, 15, 20 people on DMs. Every single day of my life, especially when I'm trying to do it. I have a full-time job and I have other projects I'm working on. I want to be creative. So it's a really hard balance for us because in terms of a business, obviously the consumer is the end goal. And so you want to be spending your time with your clients and your consumers and your audience because you want to take care of them.
Potential clients.
You want to take care of them, give them value, make sure their experience is fantastic. And then on the personal side of it, fitting it into the whole schedule of creating things and delivering the product and crafting the product and managing your time. It's a really difficult balance. The things that I tell people, because it's what's working for me and I can just see that it's true, is that I think that we're right now in a cool era where people really value immediate back and forth, more so than the slow nature of like texting. Which can take up the space. So you can have a conversation with someone like over a space of a week, right? Every day, 3 or 5 messages back and forth, right?
Yeah.
But right now, what's working for me and what's also popular, so it coincides perfectly, is Clubhouse, because you're right there with the person having a conversation with them in Clubhouse, right there to say everything you want to say in a group setting or one-on-one, or Instagram live streams, which are really, really awesome as well because it's on Instagram. It's right there. You can also post a live stream to your page for content afterwards. You can chop up clips from it if you want to. But having the live interaction is so much more effective and efficient in terms of time. If you're on Clubhouse or Instagram Live, you can talk with 5, 10, 15, 20 people at one moment. Everyone can say what they want to say. You can say what you want to say. So the interaction's there, but also it also is using time efficiently rather than responding to every single one of your 15 to 20 DMs, which can take 1, 2, 3 hours. You can do an Instagram Live for 1 hour and get back to everybody at once, or a Clubhouse and do back to everyone at once. So Clubhouse,
and like answer all those questions.
Precisely. And EJ, you've been doing the same thing with recording your Clubhouse rooms and using them as content on your social media. Talk to us a little bit about that.
I just want to say before we go there, if you inevitably deal with people in the DMs, and you deal with the DM space as an area that people just constantly want to be in, almost like flies to glue, then voice messages and video messages are also really powerful because just no one has time to chat, and also it builds connection with them a lot quicker than because it pushes that barrier. I think it's like, I'm on this level, so if you want to be here having this conversation with me, come to this level as well. Then that's how you can really weed out really quickly who's interested in interacting with you versus who's just looking to use up your time, and they wouldn't even be worth it even if you did have a conversation with them over the text message. In the end they wouldn't ever change as a result of coaching with them, or they wouldn't have ever been a client with you because they're just not serious about spending money on your services. So that's kind of a side note that I've noticed more recently. For you, Ben, it's been an excruciating process, but not because of anything related to the idea behind it, just because I struggle with technology. I always have. No, I think that it's useful because it makes me be more mindful of what I'm saying when I know that I'm going to be using it again, when I know I have to listen to it again. It kind of makes me be more responsible with how I'm using my words, with what I'm saying to these people, as well as delivering a message that actually is useful as opposed to just sounds good, which is tempting, I feel like, especially when this isn't me, but I'm just saying, like, when you're an expert in your field, or you're becoming an expert in your field, it's really easy to wow your clients or the people that you're working with a lot of big language. And it's tempting because it makes you look cool. It makes you look like, it also tells your brain, like, look, I really am worth how much money I'm asking these people to pay me, because they're clearly wowed by what I'm saying right now. And so that's clearly an indicator of how valuable I am as a person. But in reality, all you're saying is that can't access the Google Doc or whatever. But it's like, you're saying with all this tricky language and all this stuff, and I think that it's important because when you have to listen to it again, it's really frustrating to hear yourself say just like BS over and over and over again. And it's like, I don't believe any of that. Why did I say that to them? Just because, you wanted to get done with the room, or you wanted to get done with the conversation, or you just wanted to throw them something so at least they'd leave you alone and you could get done with what you need to get done right then. Rather than that, I think that it forces me to put myself into the situation, awake, be focused, be listening actively, and give feedback that's actually relevant. So yeah, I think that reusing, and I kind of knew that actually from before I even started recording my rooms. That's why I did it. It's the main reason that I did it. It's
Keeping
not because
yourself
I wanted
accountable.
to hear that. Keeping myself accountable. It's not because I wanted to hear that again. Actually, a lot of the content I share from the rooms is actually surprisingly useless. But listening to the rooms again, really, it does help me. I make notes and it helps me do better next time. So yeah, you'll see later on my Instagram, if you guys follow me, you'll see what I'm talking about, because I'm about to upload some really funny ones that are just like, why would you glorify this moment with the room and these animations? But I think it's fine. I think it's fine.
I love it. Ethan just got jumped on, like he's breaking all the rules of business. He says he wants to run a business so it's obsolete. He shares useless content. He's giving us the business don't do playbook.
But it works.
People actually enjoy the useless content. I don't know why.
Yep. It's relatable. It's relatable, dude. It's authentic and relatable. It's like Heidi said with the cat.
Because like, I mean, and this is something that's true. I feel like I've heard this places, is that now on Instagram, like every business owner, any person is trying to sell someone else on Instagram, right? Which happens, and it's okay. But like sometimes you just want the fluff because you just want to enjoy the fluff.
Yep.
Like half the time I'm on TikTok or YouTube Shorts or something.
Yep.
Just because I just want to enjoy the fluffy stuff that people make that's fun and entertaining, and I don't want to think about anything else.
Absolutely.
So,
but
I think it's fine.
I like what you said though, Jaye, about the whole message of providing value through what you're saying and staying accountable to that, because it's really important. It's easy for us to be filling the time just to fill the time, or to be posting just for posting. But whenever you keep yourself accountable of like, wait a minute, is this giving value in some sense? Value, whether in education or in terms of entertainment, the fluff, like, that's both value. Are you providing value though with this conversation or this interaction or this moment, and using your time effectively, especially whenever you have a limited amount of time. If you only have 1 hour to make an impact or 2 hours to make an impact on the audience or with your content, you got to be accountable in that. Talking about, you mentioned Jay struggling with technology in terms of recording Clubhouse rooms and posting to Instagram. I think you wanted to bring up some conversation about organization, which is something that Heidi knows quite a bit about, organizing and making stuff effective and making sure it flows smoothly. EJ, is there anything you want to mention or preface that you could hit Heidi with and Heidi could jump back with an answer on?
Yeah, if I only have one question,
like, oh, the pressure.
No, I mean, like, you can ask,
the answer.
Take your time, like, hit her up with 2, 3, 4, or 5, like, whatever it takes, just, I'm sure there's some stuff that you actually personally want to say more so than I would know what to preface the conversation with, so.
Okay, so I feel like, Heids, we as creators have a lot on our plates. And for those of us who cannot afford like someone like you, a virtual assistant, or even someone to come in and look at this mess and tell us what to do with it. I don't know if you want to give us a list of tips, or if you want to give us a program to start with, or if you want to give us some free post on your page that might help us get started. But like, how do we stay organized across all of these different platforms and all of these different projects even that we're doing? How do we stay organized and consistent with our outreach?
Okay, I have a couple of ideas here, because I'm gonna say that something like Asana is gonna be your best friend.
Is that a hot tub? It sounds like a hot tub.
Asana.
And that's the fluff we're posting on social, by the way.
Oh my gosh!
Now you see why I'm not very far along.
I love it. I never even thought of that, because it's spelled so different. It's spelled Asana. not like Asana. Okay. Anyway, and it's a similar board is Trello, Trello. I don't personally love Trello. I feel like it's laid out kind of wonky. But even though the layout is very similar,
Used it for like 9 years now, so that might explain why my problems.
I personally am not a fan. A lot of people use Trello. I like Asana and I've gotten like I'm on it for like all of my clients, and then Steven and I coordinate. My husband, for those who don't know Steven, he helps me with my projects and stuff. We coordinate and stuff. And so I have it to keep track of all my client projects, what I'm working on, what to do, when it's due, as well as keep info, just like, oh, here's this contractor. Oh, this is like hours worked on this. Or just like random info things. Like you can have a board. I'm like, I don't mind, like, I can share more. And it's probably some content that I've wanted to do more because I love it so much and how to organize. And I shout out to my client, Zon, who is the one that got me into it. And I've learned a lot from how she organizes her stuff on there. And so it helps me a lot. And the nice thing is that you can create, if you have a domain username or like email, you can create an organization then in there and have like, you have your whole organization. So I'm trying to remember. You have your organization and then you have your teams. And you can invite different people to different teams. And then under your teams, you have project boards. So it's like, you can really go from like big to small. And then in each project, you have like columns. It's like a board. And so you can then drag these little cards around and assign it to people. You can chat and stuff. You can drop documents in it. It's really a great way to stay organized. I'm like, love it. So that's for like project management. I would say that's a really great tool. If you're just trying to be like, well, I have all this crap that I have to do and I have like a paper list or a checklist and it's not helping me stay organized. I don't know what I'm on top of. I need to coordinate with this person, but it's in this email. Like all of that gets convoluted really quickly. So it's nice to put everything in one spot where you can message someone, talk to someone, plus drop documents and emails and links all in there and keep it all organized. So that's what I use with all my clients, basically. Yeah. And then I don't know if this answers your question about, this is more of
yeah. No, right. I think that is exactly what I was curious about personally.
Great.
So as a more specific question. So like we have the software that allows us to kind of, it would be like a physical filing cabinet that we have all of our things organized with their different folders. That's great. So now mentally, how do we go about kind of sorting? No, I guess maybe unifying. How do we go about like thinking about our outreach as a person across different platforms or across different projects? So like, let's say someone, we'll just use me for an example. Let's say right now I have one business that I'm actively running. I have another business that I'm actively developing, and then I have my coaching as well. And I guess my coaching would be considered a business. So like I have two businesses actively running, one business actively developing, and then obviously a million other ideas and projects I had to take care of in my personal life. Like these are just like professional, and then we have like personal life stuff that I have to take care of. So how do I go about, or how would someone go about, like what's your tips for going about unifying my thought process about my image on all of these different things? Like, do you have any organizational tips might help someone unify a thought process across all of these things?
It's like, so like immediately when you're talking, I would have an organization and then create different teams in Asana. So like you have a team that's business A, team that's business B, team that's business C. And then within those, you can have like a project for marketing, a project for admin tasks, a project for, so then you're breaking up all the stuff you have to do. But when you're talking about like image, you mean like your branding in a sense for all of those?
Yeah, I guess. Actually, I would, we can pass on that. I would rather just say, would you recommend like, for people who are struggling with like kind of separating business and personal, do you recommend just keeping all of your personal to-do list together with your business to-do list? I mean, like, I think you do this, Ben. I think that you like kind of have all of your stuff in the same page, right? Like whether it's on your notebook or whether it's on your iPhone, like kind of like if you have to go shopping, then that's on the same list as editing the podcast, or that's on the same list as doing a live stream on Clubhouse. So do you as a social media organizer, as a digital guru, do you kind of recommend this way of life, or do you think that it's better to kind of keep those things separate? What has your experience shown you?
For myself, personally, I need things together as much as possible because otherwise I'll forget stuff. So I think it really, the question is more what works best with your brain and how you want to organize stuff. Like I have to have, so like everything I do for any of my personal business or my clients' work is all just in Asana. Because that's the easiest, most efficient way for me to organize everything. Now I do have different organizations because I don't own the Asana organization for every single. So I do have to like flip through them. But how I manage that is I have different desktops on my Mac. And so I just flip through my desktops and then I can see the Asana board. So like the Asana board for one client is here. And then the Asana organization, it's an organization for my other client, and then my organization. So I just have them open on different desktops, and I'm using this because that's the motion I do to flip on my trackpad.
Right.
I just flip through them and then I can see the tasks. In a perfect world, they'd all be in one spot, but that might be too confusing to have everything in one spot. So I put all of my own stuff in the clients that don't have their own Asana organization. I put in mine, and then I keep track of the stuff there. So then I just have, basically I look at my tasks on 3 different sections, and then I know what I need to do that day. And then like for personal stuff, you could even have a personal board in your Asana where you just keep, or like a personal team, or whatever, however you want to organize that. And the nice thing about, I feel like I should be a spokesperson for Asana, but the nice thing.
Yeah, you better be getting some
I know, right?
kickback from this.
I know, right? Because I love it so much. Anyway, the nice thing about it is that say you have all these different boards and you're like, oh my gosh, what am I supposed to be working on? You go to your My Tasks list. So you have all these boards and things, and then you have a My Tasks. So only things that are assigned to you, and you can, filter it or organize it, sort is the word, sort by date due. And then you see like what you have due this week. And that's kind of how I organize myself for the week. I'll, know like the tasks that are coming up for the week, and I can be like, okay, well, I'm going to work on this day, and this on this day, and this on this day, and this is due this day, so I have to do it now. Like you can kind of organize yourself. So you can throw in your personal stuff, and it'll tell you like what board it's for. So it'll say like, oh, this is for this client, or this is your personal. Oh, this is your admin stuff for yourself. You have to invoice your clients because the next month is coming up. So it'll tell you what it's for, but it has all your projects for the week or everything you need to be focusing on for that week. And that's how I organize it because it works best in my brain.
Okay. So that's actually exactly my final question for you, because I don't want to take too much time here, is just what percentage of this happens for you digitally and what percentage of this happens for you mentally? So because you being a very organized individual, I've got to imagine that a lot of this is happening in your brain. It's just that this on the screen is giving you kind of almost like just confirming what you already know, or it's confirming what you already expect that you have to get done. So
that is a very good question.
Is that something that you were born with? Is that something that is that a skill you grew? And then also like what percentage of that happens virtually? What percentage of that happens mentally?
I want to say it's kind of 50-50 because I feel like there is a lot that happens in my brain. Like I intuitively remember, because usually it's me assigning the tasks to myself. It's kind of the way I work with my clients is like, like I'm a teammate. So like, I go through the emails and I assign the tasks to myself that I know I need to handle. And then I assign the tasks to my clients that they have to handle, like that I can't deal with or whatever, and it doesn't happen all the time, but with a lot of my clients, that's how it is because they trust me and, it's just the way we work together. Right. So, I've been assigning them so I kind of know what's happening or what's going on and what needs to get done throughout the week, or I have meetings with my clients. So it is very internal in my brain. I kind of have this running I think, week by week pattern of like what's going on.
Okay.
And then my task list, my tasks just kind of confirms, or it helps me remember. I'm like, oh my gosh, I totally forgot about that. But I don't normally, it just more like confirms what I'm supposed to be working on. And then I'll change the dates, being like, okay, well, I really need to work on this day and work it on this day.
Okay.
But it is a lot of my brain. I haven't really thought about that before, but it is a lot of in my brain. And I want to say it's just what I was born with. I don't know why, but I feel like my dad is very much like that. So I think I just inherited it somehow. Yeah.
I just think it's, I was asking personally because like I'm a very detailed person and I am very meticulous, but
Yeah.
it's not that I'm not organized. It's just that my organization I've always fought organization, like try to keep things orderly, but it doesn't work for me. They don't work for me. Like I'm working to keep things organized and my system is not helping me, I think. And I just feel like that's probably a common problem with people, especially like modern day. We have so many notifications coming at us from a million different directions. I just feel like it's easy for us to kind of lose focus of where we're going. So that's why I was curious, like, okay, so is this my brain problem? Like, do I need to like be doing some, brain exercises, like, okay, put these in the little boxes and like, get the brain strength going on of remembering things more and being more actively in tune with what my schedule looks like. So thank you, Heidi. That was awesome.
Yeah, no problem. I feel like I don't know. I'm a big on, if something isn't working for you, you got to find something that works for you, because I can't remember everything, which is why I have to have things written down, or at least I feel like I can't remember everything, or it's a security. Like, and I love checking things off. I want to check something off and be like, I'm done. It's a sense of accomplishment for me. It makes me feel good about myself and feel like I've accomplished something. So I want to be able to check things off and move things to the completed section. And
Sure.
And
that
I like,
dopamine hit.
yeah, it is. And I like to like know that I have one centralized location for all the stuff that I'm going to do, so I don't have to search for everything. Like when I have to go search for emails, it's like the worst thing in the world. Going through all my emails and trying to find this one piece of information. So as much as possible, I try to take all that information and throw it in Asana. So Asana becomes like, if I ever lost that, I'd probably cry, but like, or like break down, because it's like the one centralized hub for everything for myself in my business. And I don't know if this is answering the question, but I don't know, just
awesome.
I would try something until it works for you, because if I have to focus on my brain too much, it's just, I get tired. I need a place to leave it. And so, because if everything's in my head, it's never ending. And so then I don't, when I'm off of work, I'm not actually off. I'm stressing over this or I'm stressing over that. So I have to like write it down and have a place for it to go, for it to leave my brain space. So then I can like relax. I don't know if that makes sense.
No, that definitely makes sense.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I'm glad we're talking about making lists and having this kind of structure, because it's one of the biggest mistakes that creatives make, especially if you're trying to build an audience or build a business, is that people literally don't realize that you need to have a list, you need to have a structure. There's a quote by Les Brown, a legendary public speaker and somebody who's changed millions of lives. He said, if you don't have a program for your mind is going to be programmed. And I think that without having this stuff listed out for yourself, you don't know what specific actions to take, what strategies to utilize, right? And so the way that I do my organization is I have a monthly list, a weekly list, and a daily list. And so to throw out to what you said, Jaye, like it does become, for my monthly and weekly, like that stuff is mostly focused on like my own personal projects, recording the podcast, doing live streams, Clubhouse streams, post this many times, make a new design for the fashion line, because I don't really need to keep my woke stuff down. It's pretty straightforward, teach classes, like sometimes like grading or whatever, but it's mostly I already know to do that. So my weekly and monthly lists are 98 or 95% focused on my personal projects. My daily list, on the other hand, that one does combine everything, because I can say like, okay, I know I'm gonna be teaching classes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 today. I know that I need to have dinner, and then I can check my weekly and say, okay, this week I need to do this recording, let's do it on this day. I need to do this editing, let's do it on this day. I need to do this task, and I can shuffle it down from monthly to weekly, weekly to daily, and that's kind of how it happens for me. But Yeah, giving yourself a structure is so key, because if you don't know the game, if there's no game plan, there's no action. So, for anyone who's watching this, especially in a creative field, give yourself a structure, give yourself a game plan, because if you don't have a plan, like you're going to fail, because there's too much to keep in your mind and there's too much to be executing on. If you don't know what you're executing on, you're not executing, you're not making progress.
Yeah.
Right. So yeah, incredibly important. Heidi, I think one last thing I wanted to touch on before we do wrap it up was, and you would have some insights on this as well, about, we've talked about the mission of our businesses, what we're doing, which everyone should be, giving, to do that for themselves. If you're watching this right now, understanding what is your purpose, what's your mission. We talked about, creating content and putting ourselves out there and building awareness through content creation and through interaction. We talked about building a structure for ourselves, about how we can deliver value, how we can reach audiences, how we can reach clients. The last thing I want to touch on to kind of wrap up the conversation and bring it to a kind of a full circle is actually interacting with clients, actually interacting with clientele and building relationships with them as well. And so, obviously for you, Heidi, working as a virtual assistant, for you, Ethan is doing, life coaching, whether it's paid or free. What have you guys learned about working with clients? How do you establish a relationship with a new client? What have you guys learned about that? How do you make an impact on them? How do you provide value to them? How do you capture their attention with your services? Heidi, do you want to go first in this one, or shall we go to Ethan?
I mean, I don't mind.
Heidi, go right ahead.
I think it'll depend on where in your relationship you are with that person. Like, if you want to think of it in like, a marketing funnel or a marketing lead, you got cold to hot to like clients, like the goal is to get them to buy your product or be your client or whatever. So I feel like how you interact with them will really depend on where they are in that process. This is something that I haven't actually like really implemented myself. It's something I've been thinking about as I'm going to be rebranding and kind of working through this. But at the same time, I'm also thinking about like, okay, well, there's all these marketing strategies and marketing things you can do. But at the end of the day, it is really a relationship. So you can't ignore that fact and treat people like numbers, because the most important thing you can do is be authentic and have a real relationship with people. So in that sense, I feel like it's something I guess I'm still trying to implement everything, but like how I feel like I've really worked with my clients is, honestly, I feel that kind of lucked out, one, and then two, I was just trying to be myself, right? Like, I created my website. It was like maybe the second time I built a website, and I really loved it and it worked really well. And it was one of the things that one of my first clients, Zon, complimented me on, and she owns a marketing firm, like a marketing agency, and she's one of my clients, longest client, I guess. And we just connected. We just kind of clicked, and she liked everything that I'd done on my website and on my Instagram. The effort I put into curating a nice tailored visual really struck her as a designer. As a graphic designer and a website builder, that's what she does. So it connected with her, and then, which is something that I valued. Having a nice, pretty Instagram was something that I wanted. So I feel like we connected, and it was kind of me being who I was, and we really clicked, and then we worked together really well. And it was kind of the same thing with one of my other clients, is that she's hilarious, and she was like, I stalked you for like a month and then finally reached out, and I loved everything. And it was kind of new to me. I didn't even really see her there.
Yeah.
But she was, but it was like me being myself, putting out the content, being the person that I am, trying to say the things that I wanted to say, attracted the right people.
Yeah.
So I guess my biggest takeaway is be yourself, like, honestly, and the right people will come your way.
Completely.
I don't know if that answers your question.
Completely agree, Heidi. Completely agree. Because the thing is that if you're faking it and being someone else, like, you don't want the people that attracts,
Yeah.
Because in that case, you're not focused on the interaction, you're focused on the money or the reputation you're getting from it. Whenever you're focused on being authentic, then naturally you build a team or a clientele or an audience around who you actually are, which is something that's not going to change. It's going to develop and grow, but it's never going to change. And so, I've seen the same thing happen, from being a teacher here in South Korea, is that I always focus on being who I am as a person rather than trying to fit into an image of like what a teacher is, because then it creates an organic relationship with my students, right, who are my clients, essentially, right? Because I'm not teaching to my boss, I'm not teaching to the parents, I'm teaching to my kids, right? And so having that real interaction with them of like, this is who I am, then building a relationship is so much more effective because it's real. It's not based on a fake character or whatever, and so it's sustainable as well. EJ, how about for yourself, man? What have you taken away from interacting with clients and building clientele?
I don't think I could say it any better than Heidi has. I mean, I just completely 100% agree with everything she said. I think it's been really consistent with what I have seen myself. Identifying target audience is huge, not just because it helps you create better content, but also because it helps you in your interactions. I mean, no judgment. I mean, different people have different clientele that they want to attract. Maybe you want to attract a higher paying clientele, and therefore you have to change your behavior to get that. If what you're looking for is authenticity with your content and, the least amount of mental strain or emotional labor that you're putting yourself and your employees through, then obviously that's what you should be looking for. But if you're not, then you're going to have to change your behavior, because more you are you, the easier it will be to find and identify people, what types of people want to work with you in terms of what type of mentality they have, what type of work ethic they have, what kind of work they do, what kind of country they live in, whatever it may be. Identifying that demographic is helpful. If you start with audience and then you kind of change your behavior to get that audience, it's also effective, but it's also kind of dangerous to yourself. So for myself, I've just noticed that like being me is ultimately the best to go about things, I think, because it's kind of like making a friend that pays you a lot of money. Because kind of, people that you vibe with. Like, there's no point in working with people that you don't like, or you don't get along with just because they pay you a lot of money. I mean, again, it goes back to what your purpose is, but for me, that's what I've found. So, and to be fair,
like, being authentic doesn't mean you only have one side of yourself. There's multiple sides to who we are as people. And I think that's kind of where the difference comes in about, for me anyway, from my own situation, the way that I handle a podcast interview is not the same way I handle an Instagram live stream. Because on a live stream, it's much more relaxed and free form, anything goes. But with a podcast, I'm trying to bring value. I'm trying to pull something from the interview that people can actually utilize or implement in their life. And so obviously the way I interact in those, they're two different ways, but it's both me, right? It's the serious side of me versus like the fun or crazy side of myself. And so, you don't have to be humans are very diverse, and we have many different emotions and mental states. And so, being authentic doesn't mean being one thing. It means being everything at the right time. And so that's one side. And I think also additionally, you guys can weigh in on this as well. There's a difference between audience and a difference between clients. Clients and audience are not always the same thing. And so, I would be curious to hear about how you guys balance this. How do you balance your audience versus your clients? Has that been difficult for you? And is there anything that you've done practically to help you differentiate between them? Maybe emotionally, maybe mentally, maybe in terms of the content that you create or the way you present yourself. Have you guys given any thought to that before, the difference between audience and clientele, or have you never even kind of gone there with your thoughts? Heidi, how about for yourself?
Not really, because honestly, most of my clients have come through my audience, I would say, or they were like past friends, and we already click and get along. So for me, I feel like I want the clients that I jive with, that we just get along, that we work well together, that we click. That's the type of clients that I want. And I would kind of hope the same would be true of my audience, but like I said, I'm still in the process of really understanding who my audience is, what I want to focus on my content on, what I want to say, what I want to cultivate. So that's kind of a newer ground for me, I guess. I haven't really been focusing on it. I've been doing it. I've been consistent because I'm like, you have to be consistent, right?
Right.
So I've been consistent and trying to say similar things or say the same content pillars, have
Yep.
the same, consistency across what I'm saying
Yeah.
and who I'm interacting with. But yeah, really niching and targeting my audience is still something I'm working on. So I haven't really thought about it. So I think that's fascinating, because I normally would say, oh, one, audience bleeds into clients, so you want them to be kind of the same. But that may not be true. I don't know.
Well, I love what you mentioned just now, Heidi, about doing it and then getting more specialized later on, because I think that's really important. So many of us are afraid of messing it up or doing the wrong shit, but actually you just do it and then you can refine it later on, right? So getting the practice reps in of familiarity can lead you to the focus you want eventually. Edie, did you want to weigh in on the conversation as well? Do you see any difference between audience and clients, or do you think there's no difference there? How have you kind of thought about that conversation?
I think there's a big difference there. I mean, I want to call out to
Fatima.
Yeah, Fatima on Clubhouse. And
Love you, Fatima.
She said that your content is trying to start a conversation, and then building client relationships is actually having that conversation. I think that that's a really good distinction to have there, because I can start conversations with 50 different people, but I'm only going to actually enjoy the conversation with maybe one of them.
Good point.
And feel like the same is true for those people. I would hope it's a little more than one, but there's a very small number of people who are going to actually end up enjoying having that conversation with me. The people that enjoy having the conversation are the possibilities of having becoming a client relationship in the future.
Right.
Yeah. Whereas the people who don't enjoy the conversation are just the people who are there to look at my content, and they're interested in having those conversations, but they don't necessarily enjoy them. They don't necessarily take anything from them. Social media users in some cases, and also sometimes completely different pools of thought, sometimes different ways of looking at life. But I do feel like there's a big difference there, definitely.
I guess
No, sorry, I don't want to break up your guys' conversation, but I'm on a time schedule, so I do need to step out. If that's cool, you guys can continue on with the recording.
All right, Ethan, thanks so much for making time to be here today, man. Always a pleasure.
Thank you, guys. Yep. It's time for me to disappear back into my cave.
Catch up with you soon. Heidi, you want to jump in and say something, so please, Heidi, go ahead and finish up your thought.
Yes, I was going to piggyback off of that and say that I guess it kind of like talking about, there's the people that you're starting your conversation with, and then the clients that you're having the conversation with, that, in terms of marketing, I feel like that would be considered like part of you're taking people on a journey, because your audience can have a journey themselves with you, right? So they might start off as being like, well, I'm just here to understand this. I don't really care to converse. And then you kind of bring them along and help them realize, oh, like maybe I do want to be a part of this conversation. Maybe what you're selling or like the things you're talking about are valid and important to me. Oh, that's something I didn't know I needed. Oh, yes, I want to buy your service. Like, that's the journey you're bringing them on. And I don't know, that's kind of how it connects to my brain in terms of marketing and relationships and stuff.
This has been an amazing conversation, Heidi. Thank you for dropping all the wisdom. I think I would ask one last thing for anybody who's watching this episode and is either wants to start their new business or is in the early stages of doing their own business. Obviously for yourself, having done it for a year or more than a year, looking back at your process for everything, how does someone go about developing the confidence level and the self-belief to be able to invest in their own business and create it?
I think finding a community of people that are doing something similar to you, and there are lots of great communities on Facebook. So like when I heard, someone on TikTok talking about it, I kind of joined her Instagram account and watched a bunch of stuff that she was doing. And I'd already heard about virtual assistant. So I was like, it had been something that was on my radar. And I was just like, that seems like a lot of work. I don't really want to do that right now. In the past, like a couple of years ago. But it was, I don't know, it was someone, the way this girl, I think her name was, it's Jessica something, I forgot her name, but some way the way she said it, that like, this was something that it doesn't have to be a ton of work and it doesn't have to be daunting. You can just start and go and see what happens. And that was very empowering to me. And then like going out and finding all the other, virtual assistant gurus and coaches out there and, watching their free content.
Yep.
And I could have bought into their courses, but I didn't. I just was like, I'm going to take all their free stuff and apply it and see what I can make of this. And that's kind of how I did it. Like, I remember before my first like discovery call, is what I call it. Like, you could call it anything, strategy call, whatever, with a potential client. I like the night before I was like Googling and like looking at all of these things that these coaches said and was like, okay, so here's what I have to do, and like figuring it out on the fly. So I don't know. I feel like you don't have to be confident that you can do what you want to do. I think you just have to be confident in yourself that you can try it. You just have to try and see what happens. It's like you may or may not be successful at this thing. It just might not be the thing for you, whatever it is you want to do. But you have to at least try it, I think. And you can be confident that you can try something.
Yeah.
Even if it doesn't work out the way you had hoped it would, at least you can try it. So,
well, there's a YouTuber I really love these days. His name is Struthless. And he said that no action is worse than the wrong action. Because at least with the wrong action, you figure something out, you learn from it. So completely agree. Heidi, I really
100%.
appreciate you making time to jump in and have this conversation. It was very, very last minute. Literally to the audience, I was talking with my brother as I was cleaning my house about 4 hours ago, and then he kind of to Heidi, and we talking about times, and so we let's just sit down and do it. So we did it like 3 hours later.
So much fun.
This was amazing.
Thank you so much for inviting me. It was so great. Like,
of course,
I love talking with you guys, and I love talking about business, and I love helping others, and I'm all about entrepreneurship and starting your own business. So I love helping people do that. So,
and we can absolutely do it again if you want to make time. Is there anything we didn't talk about that you wanted to touch on before we wrap it up completely, Heidi? Any last thoughts in your mind?
The one thing that I had written down like in my notes as like a thought, was that like when it comes to, building your relationships, like building your audience and cultivating your client relationships with people that you hope to be your clients, there are a lot of really great tools that you have to pay for them, which is frustrating. But I mean, like any great tool is going to cost money.
Yeah.
But they're called like the acronym is CRM, like client relationship management or customer relationship management. And I've worked with one in particular called Active Campaign that I really love. It's really robust. It costs a lot of money, but it's something that if you're starting or if you're a little bit down the road and you really want to hone in on making sure you're like able to communicate with they would call them leads, like your audience or your clients or your potential clients. If you want to really foster those relationships, investing in a system to help you manage all of that is also going to be a good thing for you. And then that pulls in like your email marketing with your social media, like and connecting with Zapier, like you can do anything. You connect Facebook and Instagram into your CRM, and then you have one hub for all of your like client communication. So it's really cool. There's a lot of really cool tools out there. That's just kind of an extra little added bonus that I would say is something interesting to look into.
It is. It is, and it's funny because I think there's pretty much any tool you could need is out there. It's just a Google search away. And so, diving into the question, how do I manage my client relationships? It can bring up these apps like you're talking about, websites like you're talking about. So, it's business it can seem so overwhelming from the outside looking in. There's so many finer points that you can dig into and develop and improve on. Whether it's building an audience or how to manage your clientele, how to communicate with people. To the audience watching, though, the most important thing is getting started. I
would say so.
Which sounds very, very cliche, but literally, if you don't get started, then nothing happens. And so, if there's some idea or project you have in mind, whether it's a business or just a project for fun, just get started doing it, because you figure stuff out as you get into the practice, you figure things out, you meet cool people, you make a cool impact, and you can also decide if you like it or don't like it later, having that exit strategy like we talked about before. But to anyone watching this right now, wherever you are, just get started first of all, and then question. Always question, improve, and develop. That is the mission.
And find your community, whether it's on Facebook or Instagram, that feeds you. Like your own audience and your own community you're feeding them, you're helping them. But you can you need that yourself. You need those mentors and those guidance and those people, you know? So like find that for yourself, of people that help you answer the questions that you're like, oh my gosh, I'm starting a business and I don't know what to do. Find the people that help you.
Completely agree. The resources are out there, the people are out there. So if you look for it, you will indeed find it. Everyone, I thank you so much for watching another episode, and I will see you on the next one. Everyone, take care, and I'll see you next time. Oh my gosh, Heidi, nicely done.
Have fun.
How do you feel?